Okay, so good afternoon. According to Jeffrey, I need to apologise for bringing you back after a coffee break, but bear with me. So I'm here to talk about a new journal called Research Involvement and Engagement. So very briefly, it is a journal that focuses on patient involvement in health and social care, but the more interesting part of it is it's actually completely co-produced. So it's not done quite like traditional journals. So I will explain that, but first I wanted to give a little bit of the rationale behind launching it. So essentially, we come from BioMed Central, fairly medical background, and medicine's changing. My father's a surgeon, he's thankfully now retired, but his favourite phrase was always, "Trust me, I'm a doctor." And this, for many, many years, has been the state of play in medicine. But increasingly, it's changing to patients having an active role in their own care, both in social care and medicine. And this is translated into research as well. So for this, we're defining patient involvement in research as research by and with patients, rather than sort of about them, to them, and for them. And it's really based on the rationale that, what is the point of doing research if it's not going to make the patient's life better? So this is now quite keenly embedded in a number of organisations. Obviously not exhaustive. We heard about the fantastic work by the Gates Foundation earlier as well. But this has really led to an increased awareness of it. And patients can, of course, be involved in many, many different aspects of the research process. But when we were setting this up, we did recognise that, of course, a journal is an example of research appraisal and research dissemination. And we felt it might be just a tad hypocritical to set up a journal on research involvement without actually practicing what we preach. So we really set out to do this right and do it properly right from the beginning. So what do I mean by a co-produced journal? Basically, we have two editors-in-chief. One wears an academic hat, one wears a patient hat, quite aggressively on the patient side as well. The editorial board who controls the direction and strategy of the journal is representative of all the key groups. It's not like we've got 29 academics and one patient. It's as equal numbers as we can get, and there's a lot of interchange between them. But possibly most interestingly, every article is reviewed by both patients and academics, with the reviews carrying equal weight in the decision-making process. So I've got a quick flowchart, which is fairly standard. But the interesting thing is we get the editors to work together on every submission. Because as you might expect, the patient editor considers the patient reviews to be vastly superior and far more definitive, and the academic editor isn't quite so keen on that. So everything, they discuss each article personally, and all the reviews come in, and that's making the decision. So because of the subject area of the journal, and it does focus on patient and public involvement, we're treating them as subject area experts. So they're asked specifically to evaluate the research, and we've come up with a bespoke form to guide them, which was also done with the patients themselves. And so far, it's been working incredibly well. There's just a quick example I wanted to give. So I can't remember it. It's a very quick outsert. But this is an example of one of the reviews we've received. It was quite a damning one, and the article's not been published, so it's been totally redacted. But the patient said, "The researchers may know what they're talking about, but as a non-researcher, I don't. And frankly, as a logical thinker, if they can't explain it to me, then I'm not really sure they actually know either." It's kind of hard to refute that. So this has led to the entire question of how we recruit them. So at present, we're recruiting them prospectively. We can't identify them through similar publication searches or institutions. So we're building a database of reviewers. And currently, we're just relying on those who are already familiar with it, normally who are involved in research as patient through PPI or in funding. We're also targeting patient organisations. And interestingly, we've had a huge number come to us. So we've currently got about 150 patient reviewers signed up, and still looking to get more. Going forward, we're also looking to introduce sort of mentoring and training schemes, so we can almost start, I don't really want to say creating our own patients, but you know what I mean. So, sounds a little bit menacing, that, doesn't it? So we do recognise that patients don't have the same kind of advantages that academics do. So we have a system whereby all patients can submit to the journal free of charge if they review for us. So it's a bit of a tit-for-tat circumstance. But of course, open access is absolutely fundamental to this journal. It just wouldn't work if it was subscription because the patients don't have the institutions to pay the subscription fees. Also, they don't consume or find content in the normal way. So all the normal systems, particularly social media, and particularly interestingly Facebook and blogs, are really playing a key part in this, and they couldn't do that if it wasn't open access. We're also finding a lot of the articles being reused in newsletters, and being printed out and handed to doctors, apparently, which I'm not taking any responsibility for. So to make it as visible as humanly possible, we're adapting the normal one, but we're making sure every article has a plain English summary. Now, this is actually as well as the abstract and is the part of the article that is indexed in things like PubMed, as opposed to the abstract. We also have the whole journal on open peer review. This is largely because largely because BioMed Central believes in it, particularly from a medical, but the patients themselves are very insistent on this because it helps them learn from each other, it helps them see what's going on. And we have had a few patients be a little bit tentative in the first round of peer review. And when they see the comments, they've come back a little bit more detailed, shall we say. And what can I say? We launched in very late June, and so far it seems to be doing phenomenally well. This is just an example. It got 10,000 accesses in a little under 2 weeks. And that altmetric score is actually more than double that. That's just because we were only whitelisted about 2 days before I took this screenshot. So that's all. Thank you.
You had 40 seconds to go. A question? Anyone? Yes, please.
I don't know if you said this, I might have missed it, but we heard about and talked about consultative peer review this morning, and this seems like it might work, a situation where it might work really well. Have you thought about that or tried it?
We have actually. The big concern we had was that, and justified or not, the concern we had about consultative peer review was that it's the loudest voice that's heard. And we were a little bit hesitant because we felt that the patients might potentially be a little bit more hesitant to put their thoughts forward, particularly if they had a particularly aggressive academic saying this is fine or this isn't fine. We don't know if that's justified, and that's part of what we're looking to do is exactly that, sort of experiment and see what works best. I really can't emphasise enough, this is very much a learn as we go. Not tried it before, so we're hoping to make mistakes and get it better.
Great. Thank you very much, Daniel.